Let's talk about the law of cosines. The law of cosines is sort of a more generic Pythagorean theorem. So if we look at it, let's just look at this one. C squared equals a squared plus b squared is the Pythagorean theorem. If one of the angles is not 90 degrees, though, you have to have this extra term, which is negative 2ab cosine gamma. So in your textbook, you can see how you derive the law of sines and the law of cosines, but we're not going to have time on these videos to do that. So let's just see how this goes. But notice with the Pythagorean theorem, you're always picking c squared to be like the hypotenuse usually, and then and this is chosen for you. But with the law of cosines, you can use any of the sides as the first one, as long as, you know, these things match, AC, AC, and then this angle is opposite this side. So C goes with gamma, AB, AB, BC, BC, A goes with alpha, right? This is the formula we're dealing with. So let's use this to do example 3 and solve the following triangle. So we're still trying to do the same kind of thing. We're trying to fill in the missing values. But in this case, we're missing 2 angles and one side. So remember, we can't use Pythagorean theorem. This isn't necessarily a right triangle. So first, let's start by finding missing angles. So let's find let's find B, missing B. Okay, so let's use this equation for B. So B squared is going to be equal to A squared plus C squared minus 2AC cosine of beta. We happen to know beta, so cosine of 30 degrees here. 2, we know A and C. A is really 10, C is 12, minus A is 10, so 10 squared plus 12 squared minus 2AC is equal to B squared. So in this case, we know everything on the right-hand side, so we'll get a number here, and we'll just take the square root to find B. Okay, so this is 100, 144. 2 times 10 times 12 is 240, of course. Okay. And so this is B squared. And then, so we multiply all this, you know, B squared, we get something like 36.15. Put it in a calculator at this point. And then take the square root. So that tells us B is about 6.01. And I'm going to keep using 2 decimal places for our approximations. Okay, so here's all of our sides, 10, 6.01, and 12. Okay, so what are we missing? We're missing an angle. We're missing 2 angles. So remember that once we find one of these angles, we can just use the fact that they add up to 180 degrees to find the missing one. But we have to find one of them, and we can use the law of cosines to do this. So I'm going to find, I'm going to find alpha. So I'm going to use the equation A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine alpha. And so I know A squared is 10. I know B squared now, 6.01. I know C squared, or C, 12, and then minus 2 times 6.01 times 12, and then I'm looking for alpha. So this will be cosine of alpha, and in the end, I'll take the inverse of cosine to find alpha. Okay, so this is 100. This is 36.12. This is 144 minus 144.24 cosine alpha. Okay, and then move everything to the other side. So I'm subtracting 36.12, subtracting 144. I get negative 80.12 equals to negative 144.24 cosine alpha. And then solving for cosine alpha, I have negative 80.12 over negative 144.24. And so cosine of alpha is equal to approximately 0.556. And then I'll take the inverse cosine of both sides. And I'll just use the calculator for this too. So this tells me alpha is approximately 56.22 degrees. Okay, so going back up here, filling out our chart here, I have 56.22 degrees, and this is approximate. Okay, so then what about gamma? Well, I could use law of sines or law of cosines to find gamma, but the easiest thing to do is to remember that these angles have to add up to 180. So if I take 56.22, add it to 30, and add it to whatever gamma is, I should get 180. So this tells me that if I subtract 56.22 and subtract 30 from 180, I have 93.78. And so if we go back up here, we get 93.7. And that's all the missing pieces of information.